Is this you? Tired of playing with toxic people? Are you frustrated with your current gaming habits? Everyone falls prey to the dark side of gaming from time to time. I even find myself in this picture, and I hate it. If you fall into any of these categories and more, then Dr. Cole has the prescription for you. You need some comfort games. Comfort games, like the name implies, are games that you can always fall back on for a pleasant time. Whenever you're fed up with your team or fatigued from constant deaths, it's nice to know that you have something that you can always rely on to get you through the frustration. And what better way to help you get through your frustrations with video games than with more video games? Yeah, I know, putting Tetris on a list of games that help you relax and vibe is sorta a cop-out, and I won't deny that it is. This is also why I wanted to get it out of the way first. That doesn't mean that Tetris Effect is the worst. In fact, Tetris might be the best. In all honesty, I'm not the one to decide that for you. That is why I chose 5 very different games for this video. Anyway, Tetris. I love me some Tetris. While everyone was flapping their birds and surfing their subways, I was in the back of class trying to figure out how to do a mini T-spin on the tiny screen of my iPhone 4, circa 2014. Looking back, I felt I had a good relationship with Tetris, but when Tetris Effect came out in 2018, that was proven wrong. I had heard how good it was on podcasts and I had seen some gameplay. I just wasn't convinced that it was any better than what I could do on my phone. I was in the that's just Tetris boat and thought I was fine with the Tetris I already had. And oh boy, was I wrong. Tetris Effect isn't one of those games that you can just watch someone play and get the gist. It's so much more than that, and you really won't understand until you're able to try it out for yourself. Even though I just said that you can't understand Tetris Effect without playing it, I'm still gonna give it my best effort to explain the impossible. Tetris Effect combines music and the classic Tetris gameplay, along with some stunning visuals to put you in a daydream that will ease you out of your worries and let you forget about the world for a moment. I sat down to record some gameplay for this video, and the next thing I knew was that 2 hours had passed by. This is Tetris in its best form. As the visuals pull you into a trance, the music pulls you even deeper. At first, you hear beats playing when you place blocks that seem to somehow fit the song that you're listening to, and the next thing you know, you're placing pieces to the beat matching it subconsciously. With each new song, the game transitions your gameplay seamlessly, and you pick up where you last left off. This is where the game can kinda struggle, and if I'm being completely honest, a lot of it has to do with the player. I like to play Tetris at a pretty slow rate, so if the game speeds up, I have a hard time keeping up. Getting through every level on the beginning difficulty proved to be a chore for me at the latter levels. So I guess if you don't like Tetris or are bad at it like I am, then you're in luck. One of the best levels, if not the best, is actually the very first one. Oh yeah, there's also a multiplayer mode which is pretty cool too. The Alto collection, specifically Altos Adventure, are the games that I play when I want to go back to a simpler time. Back before I had the luxury of owning a smartphone, I had what every cool kid had, an iPod Touch. That iPod Touch introduced me to mobile games, and in all honesty, it showed me that games didn't have to be Halo or Call of Duty, or whatever else we were playing back then. Around then, I was introduced to a little game called Tiny Wings. Tiny Wings itself could have taken this slot on my list, but I decided that I wanted to try to pick games that are accessible to the majority. Ironically, the lack of accessibility that Tiny Wings has is actually what introduced me to Alto. I had just made the switch to Android after using iPhones for my whole high school career, and when I went looking for Tiny Wings on the store, I was heartbroken to find that it was an iOS exclusive. This resulted me in finding a substitute in the form of Altos Adventure. Luckily for all of us, Alto is readily available on your device of choosing. There are 2 versions of Alto, Adventure and Odyssey respectively for mobile devices, and the collection is a convenient package for every other device. In true Pokemon fashion, they both are roughly the same but have some slight differences. Alto is essentially an endless side-scroller backed by smooth movement and pretty visuals. It's a straightforward game and can be played with little thought. Press a button to make Alto jump and hold it for flips, all while he endlessly hurdles down a snowy countryside or a sandy desert. This game is surprisingly charming, and it's a great way to pass the time or put you at ease during the stressful moments of life. The only question remains is what version to play.
Both is good.
One day I woke up to a message from one of my good friends who said something along the lines of, "If I buy you Risk of Rain 2, will you play it with me?" I of course agreed, knowing nothing about the game. I got out of bed, opened up Steam, and started downloading my gift. When we first started playing, there were two things that I had noticed. One was that the gameplay seemed pretty straightforward, but could be complicated if you wanted it to be. And two is that the music freaking slaps. Risk of Rain 2 probably merits its own video, but for how I played it, I think it fits here. This game is a roguelite, which means that you can progress and take something with you from run to run. Yeah, if you're not clued into the whole roguelite thing, then I wouldn't worry too much. In all honesty, I still don't understand the difference, even after researching it on a number of occasions. How about I just explain the way that this game works? Risk of Rain 2 is a third-person shooter. You start the game being dropped into a level where you fight enemies and loot for equipment. You eventually find the boss of the level, and when you beat them, you can continue on to the next level. This continues until you get to the final boss, and the longer you play, the game gets progressively harder. At first glance, you wouldn't think that a game like Risk of Rain 2 would fit into a list of chill games that you can vibe with, and I'll admit, at times it doesn't. And no, I didn't pick this game solely for the soundtrack. That's just a very welcome bonus that does happen to help set the mood. Being the type of game that this is, the mood can be dependent on how you decide to play the game. This game lets you play how you want. You can go about it in a super hardcore sense and focus on your item build, the speed of progression, your team comp, etc. However, if you really want, you can just spend this time hanging out with some friends as you play the game for what it is at its core, which is a third-person PvE shooter. Sure, you may not beat the final boss if this is how you play, but if your goal is to enjoy the company of some friends while playing games, then you really can't go wrong with Risk of Rain 2. I found mini Motorways while doing research for this video, and while I haven't played it for very long yet, I can tell that it deserves a spot on this list. This game is a micromanager's dream that takes my favorite part of city builders and turns it into its own game. I think most people would equate city building simulations to watching paint dry, but to me, there is something incredibly satisfying about mapping out a city just how I like it. While many people don't like this, they probably would enjoy this. Mini Motorways is a very simple game about connecting buildings with roadways. It turns the classic city building formula into an arcade game with ease. The way that Mini Motorways is able to take something so complicated and then streamline it is pretty dang impressive. The biggest difference is the fact that the player doesn't control where the buildings are going to be placed. They blip into existence seemingly at random, which gives the game an element of chaos. One moment you may have a perfectly bustling city, but then a new house springs up that disrupts the flow of traffic, forcing the player to adapt. All this seems sort of harsh on the player, and really it's not all that bad because this game is on a minuscule scale. While it can be a bit to handle on occasion, there really isn't that much going on, so in all reality, it's not that big of a deal. You can either rearrange some things or just try again. Drifting cars is somewhat of an art form. Just watching can be mesmerizing, but what about trying it yourself? Recently, I've tried my hand at drifting in Forza, and while I'm still a novice, it can be very rewarding. Okay, drifting can be hard to pull off just right in video games, but those moments when you can pull it off are incredible. Absolute Drift takes this challenging driving mechanic and makes it accessible to anyone. This isn't to say that it'll be easy. It will take a while to get it down just right, but in about 20 to 30 minutes you'll have the basics down. It eases you into the idea of controlling yourself while sliding sideways by starting small. You work your way up through the tutorial by learning more complicated maneuvers, and when you're finished, you're a certified Drift King. Just kidding. You will understand the essentials, but it will still take some practice. If you already have some experience with racing games, I think that drifting in this game will come easier. If you don't, you probably will struggle more than most. However, that shouldn't deter you. While it may take some time to master, being able to experience the tranquility that drifting can provide is worth it in the end. The nice thing about drifting, and this game specifically, is that even if you mess up, it's pretty easy to try again. Practicing can be a bit repetitive, but that's just the name of the game when it comes to drifting. And with Absolute Drift, not only do you get some beautiful minimalistic visuals, you also have full control of the soundtrack that plays in the background. Absolute Drift is a great game to play just before bed. I found myself booting it up after playing some rough matches in Apex, or when I just wanted some easy worry relief. It can be a perfect way to wind down the day, and it can also be an excellent stress relief because when you get the hang of the controls, it's absolute zen. Hey y'all, thanks for checking out our video. We hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, then feel free to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We make videos every Friday, and we have a backlog that you can binge today. Check out our Patreon where you can find the behind the scenes of our videos, as well as some other shenanigans. Thanks again for watching, and as always, keep it rad.